Welcome back to the Becoming Mama podcast, where two long-lost best friends discuss all things motherhood. My name is Sam, and I am here with my long-lost best friend and co-host, Emmy.
Hey everybody, I'm here.
There we go. We know how to maybe do an intro now. Oh, man. Today, we are going to be talking about a sensitive topic. We're going to be talking about my decision to have a second child after having a difficult first baby. And specifically, I'll be just sharing my story, what helped me to make the decision, and how we got to the point where I'm now 13 weeks pregnant. And Emmy will chime in. I know that she has some thoughts as well. So let's jump into this, a little more serious of a topic, but I think this is something that I know I'm not alone in, because after I shared just briefly about this, I don't even know what I said, like something about it when I announced I was pregnant. I said, this was not an easy decision to make. I don't want to be honest about that. I don't want to just be like, oh, yay, we're pregnant. Like, this was actually challenging. And I had a few people comment, we are in the same boat, or I'm still there. I don't know if I want a second. I always thought I wanted multiple. And so I want to share how we got here. So as you all know, if you've listened to more than just this episode, I had a really challenging postpartum experience with Teddy, both with him having his own personal struggles and then me mentally having my own struggles, both on like a chemical level, hormonal level, expectation level. All of these different things were really challenging for me. And with that, it was also really challenging for my husband, because he saw me go through that. And there was one night in particular where I cried so hard, I popped blood vessels in my eyes, and I was just like, Teddy was 11 weeks old, and I was just so done. I was just so at my rock bottom. And that really stuck with Tom. And he brought it up a lot as I was coming out of it, of like, I'm so glad you're not there anymore. That was so hard. When you think about having another, I don't think you remember these moments. I remember those moments. And so he felt kind of helpless as well, because I had this expectation I was supposed to do it all, and it was all on me, which as a mom, a lot of it is on you, especially as a breastfeeding mom. A lot of it is on you, but I took on way more than I should have, and I didn't allow him to help in the ways that he could have. And so that was hard for him as well, to feel helpless. And he is also somebody who never, like, children were not on his bucket list, right? It was, he knew I wanted them. And I think before you have kids, you don't really understand, well, yeah, of course we'll have kids. But you don't understand how that impacts your life, your relationship, all of those things, until you truly are in it. You may see your friends and family go through it, but until you are the one whose life is now affected at 2 a.m., you don't understand what that reality looks like. So that was a challenging thing for him as well, when it was something that wasn't like, oh, I want to be a dad, I want this, for it to be as hard as it was. I think that was challenging for him. And so after all of this, we have Teddy. This is tongue tie release, things improve. And after he was about 5 months old, it's been relatively smooth sailing, aside from like different sicknesses and things like that. He's just wonderful. And he and Tom are best friends, and it's been really great. And so October of last year, I got my IUD out for other reasons. I've started getting acne, and I still don't know if I don't think the IUD was the issue, because I still have that acne. So whatever. But got my IUD out, and I started to think about, maybe I'm ready. Can we start talking about this? And it was a hard no. I don't want another. One is good. I want to put our energy into Teddy. And I was clearly not there. And so we were on completely opposite, different ends of the spectrum. And it was really challenging. And we had a lot of hard discussions about that, things that I'm not going to go into detail on, because that's a little more personal than I want to get. But we had really difficult conversations that ultimately ended up having us just push it down the road. It was like, we're not going to get there right now. And after the challenging conversations we've had, I don't even want to go there right now. I don't want to have a second kid. I don't want to get pregnant right now. I would not be happy with what that would look like. So we pushed it down the road to the summer. Summer came, and he still wasn't ready, and I was. And so that was challenging as well. And that's where I started going back to therapy, started talking through this with my therapist. And she said, well, what if you don't have a second kid? And I always joke that my response was like, Melissa, you're supposed to be on my side. You can't say that. No, I want two. Of course I want two. And she said, no, I just want you to imagine, what if you just had one? What would that look like now? What would that look like 5 years from now? What would that look like 10 years from now? What would that look like 20 years from now? What does your Thanksgiving table look like? What do your Christmas mornings look like? What does your day-to-day look like when your kids are in high school, your kid is in high school, when your kid is out of the house? Like, how often are you talking to them? Like, what does that look like? And is that enough? Is that what you want? Is that what you envision? Or then let's picture that with two. Like now, what does that look like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 years from now? I don't think I can, I don't think I want to just have one. I always thought I didn't. I thought I wanted 4 kids. And then after Teddy, it was like, oh, can I even do this again? And it was realizing how much of that short-term struggle that I was so afraid of, that Tom was so afraid of, short of a blimp of time that actually was. When you look at 20 years out, I want to go through that 1-2 years to have a full family, what I envision as a full family 20 years from now. And then I was talking to her about it, and I think it was, she said this quote where she said, most people regret not having a second or not having another child, but very few people regret their last child, right? Like, not a lot of people are like, oh, we shouldn't have had him. Get him out of the family. Very few people say that. My youngest brother was like a really miracle baby, and my mom wanted more after that. And William wasn't even planned. And she's like, I can't imagine life without William, but wasn't the inverse. And so that was where I sat as well, was like, I would regret not having a second. I don't envision myself regretting having a second. You know what I mean? Maybe in the short term, maybe what was I thinking? I'm sure I'll plenty of those moments in the middle of the night. What was I thinking? But that was really the thing that turned the tables for me. And then we were going to go to couples counseling to find that middle ground, to get us to that place where we could, what is it, waiting another year? What is it going to take for this to happen? And it kept getting canceled for like different reasons. And so we started to have like little conversations here or there. And then finally I was just like, do you think we can have this conversation without a third party? And he was like, yeah, I do. And so that kind of was like, okay, I think I know where we're leaning here, which was really good. And we had some conversations, and there were some stipulations that I agreed with, and it was the closest thing to a compromise you can make in a situation like this, because you can't say like, I want half of a child. That's not how that works. But we had a conversation to kind of lay what this will look like. And then even after that, I had a little bit of resistance, because I felt like what I was essentially saying was, I can do this on my own. I want this baby, so this is on me, right? That guilt of like, well, I'm the one who wants this, so I'm going to have to do everything, and I can't ask for help again. So we didn't start trying right away. And I brought that to him. I was like, I don't know if I can do this like, I want to say that I could do it by myself because I want this so bad, but I don't think I can. I don't think mentally, physically, I can do this by myself. And he essentially said, like, I didn't know if I wanted Teddy, but he's everything to me. Like, I love him so much. Like, that this baby's not going to be any different. I'm going to be there. I'm going to support you. You're not in this alone. And that was a huge relief. And I still feel that guilt sometimes. And that's on me at this point, because based on the information I have now, that's not something I should be fearful of. If that changes, that guilt might come back. If things are said, if things are shown, that might change. But right now, that guilt that I feel like is on me. And so then I've tracked my period religiously for a long time, because when I was trying to get pregnant with Teddy, I had struggles. And so I've been tracking my period since then. And then I use my Aura ring, which does like body temperature. I use the Flow app, which I really like, and I'm actually using to track my pregnancy as well. And so I use that to track ovulation. And I started talking to baby. I started journaling about it. I started envisioning it. I said, writing to her. And then we tried, and we got pregnant the first month, and here we are. So it was not an easy decision. And I think that if you're in that position, looking past the acute is really helpful, but then also being really realistic with yourself about like, okay, yes, it's a short amount of time, but some people truly can't survive that. If you had postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis, anything like that, where it was like, I am not going to survive this, keep that in mind. Like, I don't know how to say that like out. Just honor yourself in your situation. Put yourself first in this decision. I know that the sibling thing can be a really big topic, and that was something that I thought a lot about as well. I want my child to have a sibling, but your child needs a parent first over a sibling. And so keep that in mind when you're making this decision. There is no right answer. There is only the right answer for you. And that goes for most things. For me, yeah, it was hard, but you survived it and you would survive it again, right? I knew that. And I knew everything else that I wanted. That's not the case for everybody. And it truly isn't. And if you feel like you're in that position, that is not weakness. There's nothing wrong with that. That is just your reality as opposed to someone else's. So those would be like my big things to think about, is like, look past the acute, look past that initial hard part if you had a hard baby and that's what's preventing you from wanting to have a second, but then also look at that hard part and look at what's the reality of that for you.
It's kind of what I was thinking about too, because I'm still here, everybody. And I love that I love this story, and I loved hearing you share it, because it's so different than my experience. And I have come across a few people who have had experiences like this and who have shared about it, but only in a very, very intimate, never public, just like whispers in the cubicle type scenario, where these conversations are being had with only very, very trusted individuals. And it just makes me think about how, for me, choosing to have a second baby was, from the very beginning, knew it would be my redemption. Knew it was the thing I had to do in order to overcome the experience that I had had. And so it was challenging, but I knew I had to look at the work that I had to do to get to that next place. And so I think it's important to remember that times, not in everybody's situation, because I can definitely resonate on the hyperemesis level, not knowing if I could actually do that again, feeling like I barely made it through that time, and I don't know if I could even do that again if we had a fourth baby. So I definitely hear you on that piece, but trying to squeeze apart this piece where it's like, you hear this calling of a second baby or third or fourth or whatever it is for you, and you want them to come through. And is it trauma and lack of healing that's preventing you from making that decision? Or is it truly that, like, your heart's like, we're all good with one? Our family feels complete. It feels like there is a golden ring of light around everyone who's here, and nobody else is supposed to come into this circle, and that feels good to us. So definitely, like, getting quiet and hearing what's truly right for you.
And I think about you sometimes when I think about this journey, because like, I don't know, you're so strong to me in so many ways because you've had to be. Like, I know how strong you've had to be throughout your life. And I pulled from that when I was like, I can do this again. Cause that was my biggest fear. It was like, I don't know, like, I don't want to ruin my marriage. And I want to say, I've shared this story with like a few of my friends, and sometimes I get the pushback that he was being selfish and like, how can he not think about Teddy? And I genuinely think he is thinking about Teddy. And he has his own goals and ambitions and personality. And I have my own goals and ambitions and personality. And they are different sometimes, and that is a point of grief for me, where of course I wish I had a partner who had the same family trajectory as me, but we share other trajectories, we share other passions, we really push each other in a lot of different ways, and that works for us. This is one area where we're not aligned. And I think that if you're looking at a partnership, and obviously I've only been married once, I only have my one life partner, but when I look at a marriage, I want us to have our differences and I want us to have our similarities. And unfortunately, this is a difference that is a hard one, but it's, if you think that you're going to be aligned with your partner in every decision you make throughout the course of your marriage, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And this was one that we had to navigate, and I think it's made us stronger on the other side. And I know it's going to be challenging when she gets here. I know that it's going to be hard for us, but we know that, right? Like, we already have that expectation. Like, this is going to be hard, and we're just going to have to get through it, and we will, and we did, and we can do it again. And already starting to lay the expectations of, this is what I'm going to need from you to help me get through this, and this is what you're going to need from me to help you get through this. That's already helping us with our mindset going in. But I just want to say, if anybody's listening to this thinking that he's selfish or whatever, or that I'm selfish or whatever. No, we are individuals, and that's what a partnership is. It's two individuals who work together to make decisions, and it was a hard decision to make.
Yeah, and what it boils down to is always communication, and I think you guys did a really, really good job of, we're trying to communicate about this, we're having a hard time, we're going to add a layer of support here in order to help us through this difficult conversation that we're trying to have, and then getting to the point where you're both ready to actually sit down and have a conversation where you can both hear each other. And I think in most scenarios, that's how most families, when they're having these family planning conversations, there's probably one partner who's like, I don't know, and one person who's like, steam forward ahead. In my relationship, that's always me. But I don't think it's uncommon for one parent to be like, I think we're good to go. I think everybody's here. I think all the kids are here. And one person to be like, it doesn't quite feel like that to me. So, and I don't think that's selfishness. I think a lot of times, actually, it's more preserving the family that is here and wanting the best for everyone who is here. One of my sets of family members, I won't call them out, have 4 kids, and I love that idea and hope that we have 4 kids, but they're always like, it's pretty expensive to have 4 kids. The bills really start adding up when you have that many kids. And I'm like, you said earlier, which one would you give back?
Yeah.
And then we all laugh and joke around. But family planning is just like, it's such a reality of everyday lives and the conversations that we're having with our partner, because that's the only person we can really have those conversations with. There are 2 people that need to make that baby.
So if you're going through something similar, just know that you're not alone, and that I think it's more common, like Emmy said, than maybe we hear. And if you need to talk to somebody about it, you can always DM me. I've had these conversations with people. And like I said, one of the biggest things I think that helped us as well was pushing it down the road, just knowing that, like, okay, we're not going to get there right now. We're not going to have this conversation right now. And so we don't have to. And I think that's another thing that really can weigh heavy on this conversation is the age gap. 2 under 2 or 3 under 3, or one of them 2.5 years apart, or one of them in school at the same time. And that's all great. And there might be one that's better than others. But really, like, I was, obviously, because of who I am, I was looking up what's a good age gap? And everything says what is good for you. When you feel ready to have a baby, that's truly what's going to be the best. And so get that pressure off of you and know that, like, you could have 2 kids really close in age who end up hating each other. You could have 2 kids 8 years apart who end up being best friends. Like, there are so many different scenarios out there. You just really need to do what you feels right for you when you feel ready. So take that pressure off, and it's okay to not know right now. You might know, it might hit you 5 years from now where you're like, ooh, I'm ready. Let's have another one. And then you do, and you go there. But if it's not right now, that's okay.
And one thing that I think is really funny is that when I was thinking about having Twyla after I had Fox, I used to ask people this question all the time. I used to ask, how far apart are your kids, and are you happy with that gap? And people would always say, yes, they're 2 years apart, they're 3 years apart, they're 5 years apart. And they would always say, that was the perfect thing for us. That was exactly what we needed. That is the right way to do it. You should consider trying to do it that way. So I think it's just kind of like however the cards fall and the dice flies, that's what's supposed to be right for your family.
Right. And if you don't have another age gap, what difference do you know?
Yeah. We can do as much research as we want and try to divinely plan these things, but ultimately it's just divine intervention that's going to lead to whatever's supposed to be will be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening to this podcast. I hope that it was helpful, and I hope it was helpful, and I hope that I shared that in a good way. But if you want to hear more from us, if you want to hear more from the podcast, make sure that you subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And while you're there, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment, all of those fun things. And to connect with us, you can find all of our information down below. Anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. Thanks for listening.